think when you activate it, you can activate it.
Okay.
Seems like that's how it's behaving.
Okay, I'm showing 4:00. I will call the meeting of the Roads and Right of Way Committee to order for July 15th. I declare we do have a quorum present, and we can move right to the agenda. First item on the agenda is the committee reorganization.
And Rick wants to amend that to include election of officers.
Yes.
Yes, please. That's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, so we'll include that.
Now, this is open meeting law. Meeting. If we do it by roll call, then we've also taken.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
Paul, Nat,
Aye.
And
aye. Rick,
I,
Lee Saperstein is no.
chair votes reluctant. Okay, so that'll move us then to the reorganization of the committee, right? That's what we just voted on?
Yeah, that's right. Well, and election of officers.
And the election of officers.
Chair, vice chair, secretary, and general dog's vote.
Okay, do we have any volunteers for?
Yeah, let's discuss before we nominate.
Okay. Discussion. Lee?
Bill was chair for quite a while, and he came after Alan, who was chair for a very quite a while. It strikes me that the committee, I don't know that we have fences to mend, but we have an opportunity to work collaboratively with the town and its other committees. Bicycle and pedestrian advisory has been mentioned, and that is an appointed committee, I think. And the traffic safety work group is an ex officio committee. Every member is there by virtue of her or his office. Tracy, do I have that right or do I have it backwards?
I think you have that right.
But whoever takes this on needs to be prepared to talk to Mike Burns and Art Sparrow, who is, I recall, are the chairs of those.
I don't think Art's not in.
Arnie Hart. Whoever is.
I'm not sure who the chair is. So if we're not having volunteers, we have people who argue, we can always nominate.
That is one
But
strategy.
they couldn't, it's hard for them to say no.
It's guaranteed to fail, but there you go.
That is usually what happens when you don't show up. You're wrong.
So if we don't have volunteers, then we have nominations, is that correct, Mr. Chair? Well, I'm just
Well,
asking.
Well, if somebody volunteers, the formality would be to then nominate him since.
Yeah.
I understand, but I haven't heard the volunteer. So.
I don't know. I keep thinking that the committee is too significant to lose, and I'm prepared to help. But hell, I just had a birthday yesterday.
What's that got to do with it?
Well, Rick, I'm 6 months younger than you.
Gosh, are you sure it's 6 months?
You're not. July of 43.
May.
13 months.
Anyway, that makes you the youngster. So I think in effect, Lee has volunteered without quite saying it directly. And if he's not careful, I think I'd like to nominate as the chair.
Okay.
I wish I had the bandwidth to do it, but I can't do it. I will tell you that. But I just got too many other commitments right now. So with my youngish family.
Alan, will you be willing to stay?
If you were the chair, yeah. Yeah, just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from, I have no idea how any of this equipment works. I'm a real Luddite in terms of computers. I'm on the verge, I've been on smashing my computer and your phone.
Well, what we do is we look at Charles and say,
Well,
Yeah, right.
if Mr. Acting Chair, Vice Chair, call on me, Charles Douglas for the record. We as an NCTV, we're the station manager, have been asked to try to hand off this duty to town staff when they're here, as Tracy is, blessedly. And next month, Tracy's compatriot will be here, and I will be going through a brief training session with them. But in the event that neither staff member are physically present in the room, it would be ideal if there is a committee member who I can work with to train on how to launch the meeting in the room. However, since you're in good hands for today and good hands for August, that isn't a matter you have to decide today, and it really doesn't determine who you elect as your officers. Anybody can be the volunteer.
to be fair to Charles, he spent quite a bit of time with me training me on that. It's just a thick layer of rust. And I could probably come back up.
And correct me, Mr. Chair-elect, aren't you gonna have one more new member of your committee once Bill's position is replaced?
Yes, and we haven't heard yet, it's Mr. I think, Altraloni, was an applicant and was the only applicant. If we presume, based on Rick's resident, if the number of applicants meets the number of vacancies, boom, it's done.
What was the gentleman's name again? What was the name of the applicant?
Altraloni, it's a Scottish name.
Just wondering.
He says that he has, the applications are all there in the packet. So sometimes I actually do the right thing. And he says that he had 30 or 40 years of experience outfitting supermarkets. And that he has a lot of awareness of things like physical layout. So it may start with a supermarket. He was clearly intending to be a member.
That's good.
Bluntly, Alan and I tried to recruit several people. And each in turn nominated the other, and neither responded.
I talked to one myself. Yes, they were already on too many stuff they were trying to get off of.
So we'll have a full committee after the second round of appointments.
Yes. Good.
We're humming.
So whom are we missing here now? Snooki,
You gonna take the,
Rob Rennie.
roll call, please? We have the roll call on the nomination.
Oh, no, we haven't elected me yet.
That's why I was moving for the roll call.
Okay.
And I think the roll call could be
It's,
conducted by the existing vice chair.
I think he was
As the
still
acting chair of the
thinking who
meeting
else he could
until the roll call's finished.
okay.
Then it'll be Mr.
So Rick Atherton is saying that there's a nomination for one person. He doesn't hear any other nominations, and he's suggesting that we close nominations, close debate, and vote.
And have a roll call, I think probably by the existing,
yeah.
before the roll call's finished.
That's
So,
right.
Al, would you
Alan.
take
Yes.
the roll call?
So we have a motion on the floor, everyone is familiar with the motion.
Yeah.
And we'll go to a roll call vote, Lee,
Aye.
Rick,
Aye.
Ed,
Ed Gillum for the record. Aye.
and on that.
Aye.
thank you all.
Congratulations.
I have some homework to do.
So Lee, I think I can probably get you some instructions if you had to, if Bob couldn't be here or I couldn't be here to set it up,
Yes,
you know.
I'll come for the August meeting, I'll come 15 or 20 minutes early, and we'll work together. I actually scribbled a cheat sheet some time ago.
Yeah.
Turn this on, turn that on.
And then, you know, there should always hopefully be a staff member here.
That would be helpful.
You know, it's hard to say, you know, like when I can't be here and if Bob couldn't be here as well, we don't know who we would be able to send, but you know, the anticipation is there will be a staff member here. I can put on the otter remotely. Because it joins the meeting like anybody else would join the meeting,
Okay,
but I can't set up this remotely.
okay.
I'd be happy maybe to sit in when he gets educated, just in case, you know. We
Yeah,
need
so
a backup for this.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy if you have like a little cheat sheet like Lee's
Yeah,
saying.
so, yeah, my cheat sheet's already out of date because the Zoom password has changed and Otter is something new to this particular sheet.
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll be here at 3:30 prior to your meeting time next month to
Okay,
hold a training with whomever would like to appear. Thank you, Ed, and thank you to maybe the new members. They can get here early as well. That'd be
Okay.
great.
thanks, Charles.
Thank you. Give all that.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you, Charles.
Keep good up there.
So you're gonna do the vice chair, Lee?
Yes.
I think we voted for everybody. What we did,
No, we didn't vote for it.
Oh, I thought that was.
I move that Alan be vice chair.
Second.
And Gillum seconds. Roll call. You go last. Aye. Chair votes aye.
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Ed Gillum, and for yourself. Okay, there is the nominal role of secretary. And we probably should pick one. And that person might be responsible for editing the script that comes from Otter.
Correct. So what I will do is I will go through, I'll identify all the speakers and everything and get it in sort of a draft shape, and then I'll send it to, you know,
Well, for the moment,
circulate it for revision. It's accurate, like in terms of it's exactly pretty much what you say, but there's typos and things like that in it.
I had the challenging editing job of converting spoken comments as recorded on a tape recorder into some kind of sensible log. And I realized we not only don't speak in paragraphs, we don't even speak in sentences.
So this generates two documents. You can convert the actual whole thing into a narrative. Then it gives you a summary as well, which will include sort of what they deem as action items. So it did that for last time. It generated action items based on the discussion that we had. And so I think between the two, you can come up with some real sort of viable minutes, but it will identify your votes. And once you identify all the speakers, it will identify all that.
So our next item is public comment. And we have no members of the public, but it's an opportunity for committee members to speak. I'll start off with next Monday, the Civic League sponsors the summer annual forum. And our town manager is relatively insistent that most of the department heads be there. And so what we're hoping for is a gracious discussion between town citizens and their town management. Town manager will be there, at least 2, but we will call 5 of the select board members will be there, and there'll be a selection of department heads.
What day, what time?
Monday at 10 a.m. in Great Hall of the Anthony.
This coming Monday, right?
Yeah, 21st.
And it will be recorded, right? So it's gonna be available for those who can't attend in person.
I think it will. there was something of a discussion, almost a debate, in the Civic League about using the Great Hall. It's much smaller than the community room over at Public Safety, but it's always been there, and it's at the heart of Nantucket. So we've had sessions where there were available chairs, and we've also had sessions where people were turned away before. And so, and you did ask a question, the response to which is, it's not wired for sound, but NCTV will do its best to pick everything up. And my job as moderator will be to remind people to use the microphone, because that's the way it gets into the system. Okay, that's one. And the other is the Civic League's President's Breakfast, which is Saturday, pretty sure it's August 9th. And are you going to be there? I know Bob.
Bob is going, I believe Bob is gonna go, but we have our presentation ready. We haven't been authorized to release it. The select board has to see it first. So whether there's limited meetings, to do it. So that leaves, if we don't get it on the 23rd, then that only leaves the August 6th before your breakfast. And so I don't know if we'll be there with the actual presentation, but we can possibly be there to have a brief discussion of it.
That would be helpful because it is the last, it is a general meeting of the presidents of the 23 area associations, thank you. And while many of them will be attending the annual meeting in September, the week after Labor Day, this is a good time to capture everybody. Just to remind them that if you see an announcement about an encroachment policy presentation, turn it on.
Yeah.
That is a great idea.
Okay, that's what I had for public comment.
I'm not sure public comment or other business. I did have one kind of general question regarding enforcement that I heard from a Wisconsin person. Is this the time to mention that?
You mentioned it, and if we all agree, it should go to the end of the agenda, number 6, under other business.
So is
You
it,
have the opportunity to let us know.
this person was quite concerned about encroachments on their road. But the road is a private. And, you know, I think they were extremely frustrated with some residents of it who didn't seem to be cooperative. Recognizing the need for proper
So the
mitigation privet hedges, I'm guessing.
So the French idiom translates to, the more things change, the more they remain the same. One of the first things that I saw Alan have to deal with was the blockage of those little lanes in Codfish Park. And so you've got 2 public roads in Codfish Park that are connected, and those connections are private, but they are private ways. And of course, somebody had stuck a bush in them. We got people wildly upset, and all we could do was say, talk to your neighbors because it's a private way.
Well, I think there are other things you can do, depending on the nature of the road, and that's the public safety issues of the road. And contacting, if that party, or if we would help them, or you would help them, contacting really the fire, maybe the police department as well. And they demand a certain opening, a pathway.
Yes.
For their trucks to get through, which may help this person. And that may be, I don't know how to go about that, but if that's the only recourse, I can tell you about Squaw Road's experience. And we made a deal. I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but the people on this road could do the same thing.
Still gonna get
Because
coverage.
if you don't take care of it, then the police department will stop coming. to your road, we won't plow your road, or do anything. Except watch it to see.
Yeah.
I'm sort of exaggerating, but I think there is to.
I would suggest that the last recourse is to hire a lawyer and try and go to court. And the first recourse is to deal with one of our public service agencies and ask if they can help.
I would correct that one step further, though. First of all, deal with your neighbor, then go to the public guy, then the last resort.
Seems clear in that conversation, this person has contacted neighbors, and I think the response, not by everybody necessarily, but is what the person asked me. So I could also pass it back and suggest the person come to our committee and raise the issue here, or maybe contact you directly.
I think it's
Tracy?
say it's a traffic safety issue, if it's
Right.
access for public safety. So I would go there first. And private roads are the responsibility of the abutters who have the fee in them. It's not part of the encroachment policy. What we're dealing with now is the basic policy as it exists currently. But I think in a real emergency situation, you call, like anybody would, you call the police, but I think it's not, they're going to have to do some diligence to resolve it on their own.
I think the fire department, they have to have a certain
Yeah.
width to be able to go on roads and just for safety in general. So that would probably be the real hat you'd hang your head.
And if I recall the makeup of traffic safety, it's made up of ex officio. And so just bringing it to that work group brings it to the attention of several of the critical people.
Okay, thank you.
Ed Gillum through the new chair. Since we've opened up the door of encroachments, I thought it'd be very interesting to read something. It was in the INM, the looking back column that goes by quarter century. Back in 2000, 25 years ago, hedge owners on West Dover Street were expressing outrage after they claimed the Department of Public Works butchered their private greenery. DPW workers pruned hedges in the street back to the property lines as a matter of public safety. I won't read the rest of it, but we go down to the very bottom. A member of the Board of Selectmen sharply reminded the disgruntled residents that the town is not required to repeatedly remind residents to maintain their property boundaries.
I saw that.
But I thought that plays right into
The French idiom, northeastern.
the mother of the saying. You got that right.
So we
Were
do,
you clearing your throat, Matt, or did you want to say?
I'm rolling back the 25 years. This isn't new. It's not. Back to John Miller's hedge. Reverse that street and you won't have a problem. And it's not John Miller's anymore, but that's a good one. And then when you're pulling out of Williams Lane, Williams Street, whatever, to Pleasant, that hedge to the left in that old house that's been there for 1 billion years, that hedge has to be low or you cannot see to the left. Now,
They changed your favorite hedge on Westchester and New Street. New Lane in Westchester. You notice that was low.
Well, I'm going to,
I think that what Tracy's talking about is sort of the new, I don't want to say new policy, but we can't be like, the gripe committee, okay? But at the same time, there are some real solutions to certain things. And I still feel that the homeowner, and I know we're not talking about the one in Sconset now, we're just talking in general terms, but if the homeowner does what has been agreed upon on their own, that should be suffice for these specific encroachments that are either a safety issue for sightlines or walking, etc. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. And, we went through this, Alan remembers Joe Mocklinger went through this whole thing and we revised it 10 years ago, whenever it was. And there's a lot of unique encroachments that are sort of historic, not just the steps in the front of those old houses on like Fair Street and Orange. I'm talking about just things that were just the way they've been forever, and you'd be cutting, we can't cut a tree, but we can cut a hedge, right? I mean, it's, there's a lot of arbitrary thinking that can get into all this kind of stuff.
Okay, Nat, Ed's
Yep.
listening.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I have an idea, and I'm not sure whether this would open the Pandora's box. But the first idea I've always had is striking the streets for no parking to keep people, they put a stripe, if there's no parking, give people a fine. That way they don't have to put the stakes and the rocks and everything else. That's one. The other, you have a beautiful, significant hedge on Nantucket, which there are numbers of in Wisconsin and elsewhere that have been grown for years. They're lovely, not a safety hazard, but they're definitely an encroachment. Maybe we could create a license for the hedge.
Yeah.
And the people should then have to pay a fee to keep their hedge.
So that is in the policy.
That's
and
in it.
That's in the policy.
Okay,
That's
good.
called a category 3. We're working through that. We have some incidents where people have installed a hedge to create a larger boundary on their property. And so it's, instead of it being a manicured landscaping nice thing, it's really creating more space for them. So we have a homeowner right now we're working with. They have to develop the plan. They have to have an attorney. They have to bring it forth. Really, we'll present it at select board, but really they have to be there to pitch their case. In this particular case, it goes over a sewer line. We've had a number of requests for hardscaping that goes over utilities. Those are, a no, really. So it isn't a one size fits all, but like Nat said, there are some historical ones we are trying to actually get licenses so that they at least have documentation, insurance, all of that kind of a thing.
If I may, what Tracy is telling us is that application and enforcement of the policy is as significant as any edits or amendments to the existing policy.
Exactly.
Hey.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is a great conversation. This could go into all kinds of different things that are really important. I think of Washington's Ave in Mattocket, 50-foot layout, Mattocket Road's 40. I mean, think about how silly that is. But no one was thinking back then, because I believe Washington Ave was supposed to be Mattocket Road or something back in the day. And then you have all those like odd encroachments in an area that was never going to be used by the town.
Right.
And then you have other roads like Nobody Farm that's 30 feet.
Right.
It's
And
crazy.
we looked at some things where we've actually had, Drew from DPW come and David from the sewer department, because what we don't know is sometimes is whether there is drainage or infrastructure underneath.
Yeah.
And in some cases it's wide and then that infrastructure is there. And so, do we care if they mow it or whatever? No, probably not. But if we have to dig it up, we can't just give it away. But the licenses all have automatic termination language in them. If we need it, we can just terminate the license. So, we're working, we're kind of plugging along, working on all those kind of things. There's a number of parking where it's like historical. They've just parked in the parking space and, it's not really bothering anybody.
Like Academy Lane is one. There's a lot of stuff like that there isn't really oh my God, I don't want to say a rule, but there just isn't a way to have a policy. It's a historic, and we shouldn't, because it's historic, and we're supposed to be cognizant of the historic stuff. This is a long conversation. We could get into a lot of stuff here, and I think
and potentially a whole staff position. But
well, it's not. But you know what? But Tracy, it blends in with some of the other. We've talked about this, and Lee brought it up at the beginning. There are other committees that are sort of kind of like molded into some of the things that we were doing or looking at in the past. And there's multiple roles now between bike committee, between traffic safety's new setup, which whether I agree with it or not, I still feel there should be some citizens on that committee, but that's just my opinion. And I want to bring up something else, the old street and sidewalk committee that Rick and I were on twice. That is kind of what I think we should be morphing into a little bit. That's just my opinion, but that committee did some great things for that short amount of time that it was formed, for a specific reason, because of the new sewer projects in town, all the II stuff. That's why that committee was formed. And there was a lot of stuff that happened that we learned a lot about some of these small roads, and Dirk Roggeveen was on the original one, and it was unbelievable. And it kind of fits into some of the things that come up that are sort of in no man's land. Like, who's responsible for certain things? You know what I mean? And I think that as a town, we've fixed a lot of stuff. You know, we actually have rights to Steps Beach. Remember? We thought we did. Well, I mean, we're kind of running out of stuff, and we have to come up with some different things, in my opinion, that we should be looking at the old-fashioned way. Like, how should this sidewalk be rebuilt? If Victor's going to rebuild a sidewalk, what improvements should we be doing? Because we're not doing that right now. We're rebuilding them, but we're not like adding bike rack things or, small improvements that can happen with projects. That's my way of thinking.
Important and significant, but I am going to point out that we're kind of edging into agenda item number 5. So
Okay.
that with the minutes, Tracy, we might indicate that we stole a march on all of the committee functions coming up.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chair.
So,
Alright.
so
As you said, it's important.
corollary item is to make it a full agenda item, future meeting. And then we're more prepared to deal with the issue. I didn't raise it to get quite as far as we've gotten, just looking for some advice.
Okay, well, you got lots of advice, but what I'm suggesting to Tracy is that when your encroachment policy is ready, we could hear it here, to be informed, to respond if there's anything that we might think about. It just, the more ears, the more eyes.
Right, so the presentation as it exists now is on existing policy. It's a re-informative thing for outreach for the public, for them to be educated on the existing policy. There's nothing new in it, it's simply existing. But it gives a lot of examples, do's and don'ts, how your head should be trimmed, what the length of the layout is, that sometimes, that it's not just where the paved portion is, but then there's the shoulder and those kind of things. So it's more of just an outreach to try to get people to understand that we want the areas to stay clear, that it is their responsibility to keep those areas clear. And then the idea of it was really because we're exhausted over the stakes and rocks. And it's, as more people get aware of the click and fix, it is becoming sort of all consuming. We have to vet out each, so I just 5 today. I just did one day 5 that I have to then look at, research the title, figure out if it is actually an encroachment, figure out if we're going to send a letter. Now, I'm just me and I happen to be a title examiner, but it's an enormous amount of my time while I do 100 other things. And, but it takes all of that before we even decide whether we're going to send the letter. Then the letter has to go. Then they have to remediate the issue. If they don't, then we have to then queue up DPW to go do it. And it's all just part of this time-consuming process that if we could just educate the public to do the basics, it would be really helpful. So that's what the presentation is.
You're doing your study. Do you have any kind of a check sheet or thing that you can just very quickly mark off so that when you decide to send a letter, it's there as justification.
I do, I create a file for each property and I save all the materials into that, all the plans and everything that I have. I'll put right in the layout plan, okay, this one is 30 feet or whatever it is, if we have it. A lot of the 1799 roads, as
Yeah.
I'm sure all know, are variable width.
Yep.
So subjective.
Yeah.
So,
And nobody knows that,
right,
especially property owners.
right.
I can't figure out how to raise my hand with this new thing here. I can't believe it. But anyway, can I just make another comment to give you another plug, Tracy, because you deserve as many as anyone could give. When you start talking about, all the, whether to send a letter or whether, you got to kind of know what the hell you're talking about. Like, you just can't just come from somewhere else and figure this out. You have to have a lot of knowledge. Like driving down the road and looking at something with a pair of eyes that sees, okay, this may be an encroachment, but this isn't a problem. Now, how do you say that in writing? How do you, but that's part of our historic, nothing makes any sense on Nantucket. Like the layouts, everything is different. There's curbing in places that shouldn't have it, and there's no curbing where there should be curbing. I mean, there's just a million things that make no sense here. But that's who we are. And you have to understand how to. I was looking for a letter in the peeking or looking backward, the parking on the sidewalk. There was Sid Killen was chair of the selectman, whenever, I don't know, late 50s, early 60s. And there was a comment in there about somebody came to the meeting that lived on Fair Street and complained about the cars on the sidewalk. And I'm sitting there going, wow, we wonder, we still do this. Of course we do. Right. And he said, this is how we do things on Nantucket. You would never be able to get past the vehicles. Nothing's changed. That, when that gets brought up all the time, I said, we'll lose 100 parking spaces if we take cars off the sidewalks.
Matt, I'm going to feed you something, and then I'm going to suggest that we'll very quickly deal with minutes. What I'm going to feed you is that in the Nantucket Town Area Plan, we've included a 2003 memo from the sidewalk parking work group who assessed every road on which people park and whether or not that was reasonable.
And that's awesome. That's a great thing. I didn't know that existed, by the way.
It's in the appendix.
It's just normal and it's historic.
We were busy when we presented to NPEDC.
I don't remember that, but that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Years ago, when I lived closer in town, I was worried that I was encroaching the sidewalks by parking the sidewalks as far up as I was. And I was told by the police chief back at that time, as long as a baby carriage can be pushed on the sidewalk, and you're not in the way, and then not a double, just a single.
Chief Pittman, Chief Castor's predecessor, addressed our group and said, it's illegal in Massachusetts to park on the sidewalk.
It isn't.
Full stop, period. That's it. He said, but until I'm told to enforce it, we're just not going to worry about it, because there's no signage that we could create that would permit it, that would be authorized by the state.
Yep. And that goes with my pet peeve about mopeds parking all day in car spaces, taking up 25 feet. But it's not a motorcycle that should be on the sidewalk with the bicycle.
Okay. If I may, this has been extremely useful, not in any interest on my part to cut it off, because it's filling in the spaces that need to be filled in that we're going to work on. So, Ed, I see your hand, and I'm going to accept it. And are you going to move the minutes?
No, I first thing I want to do before we should move the minutes, I guess, right? Do we move the minutes first?
Do we have minutes? We don't have.
We
minutes.
don't have minutes.
We don't have
We
any.
don't have them.
We
So,
don't have
I
them,
was gonna
but
say,
then I have
don't
them
have
that I'm going to send to you, and then next month we will do both,
That
we'll both do both
explains- That
sets.
explains why I kind of lost my way as to when this meeting was.
There you go. But
No,
I do have another business thing, and I thought this is something very interesting, in another area of our purview, so to speak. You know, that late June, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill that promises to reopen Panhandle beaches to the public. And it repeals a 2018 state law, beachfront property owners to close off miles of local shoreline to residents. And the bill, I'm not going to give all the details of the bill, officially restores local authority to recognize which is known as the recreational customary use of Florida beaches. So if it's been used for years by the public, the new person can't come and always close it off to the public. In other words, they will be, this is to enjoy the beach without beach owners trying to keep them off. This could be very pertinent to something like Nantucket. We were talking about how to, keep the village. And this includes walking, fishing, swimming on the beach, those three things. And, it goes right into, but it says if the recreational use of the sandy area adjacent to the mean high tide has been ancient, reasonable, without interruption, and free from dispute, such as use as a matter of custom should not be interfered with by the owner.
Sounds like renting your house. You like that?
A lengthy discussion about this. This was a number of years ago about public access on the beaches and all this sort of thing. We even did a forum. We had,
well,
This is before one big beach.
who monitor chapter 91, which by the way is waterways. The license part of chapter 91 is like section 17 or 18 of 40 or 50 separate sections. However, Ed, what I want to fill in here is our local state representatives to the general court. In those days, it was Dylan Fernandez as well as Julian Sir. Tried as a trial balloon to insert the word recreation.
Well, I know that. So that's why.
In addition to fishing, fowling, and navigation.
Customary recreation gives it the history that might give it more teeth. The fact that it's been, like I read, it's almost like adverse possession of the beach, so to speak. It's the language of sorts.
They didn't
Yep.
get- I'm not sure that we would get much further. However,
Well, it's interesting, how that.
It's not interesting to me, because I'm gonna say from a title standpoint and historically, and Massachusetts is the anomaly in title. It is. If
Yep.
there could be, all the other states maybe could get that passed, with the exception of Massachusetts. And so I think that would be a lofty pursuit. And then when you get into the word recreation and the Massachusetts general laws on Article 97, I think you start to open up something that's very different than Florida.
What is recreation?
Exactly.
however, Ed,
And our beaches, there are a number of them that not only are owned in title, they have the intertitle rights, but that's it. It's land court. So
so I'm not suggesting that Ed's suggestion was a bad one.
no,
Because-
I'm not either.
Okay, because I did deal with issues of access, but by things like the one big beach and public access points to the beach, which we've been pursuing for years of, and another absent member. We should have made Phil Smith chair. But Phil was working with Nathaniel Porter to expand our GIS system to be much more specific about beach access.
So we are also, Bob and I have been working a little bit on that as well. It's part of incorporating it into our yard sale database that we're creating, that we have our interns working on. So we have been able to, we'll be able to divide up the yard sale list as to those that were for One Big Beach. So we have the list. Once we get them all in there, then we can be able to sort the database all different ways, including through One Big Beach, which will then allow us to give a list to him.
Now, if I may, to add to that, as Rick knows, there are a number of private walkways or steps down to the beach that exist because they have a license from the town. But an index of licenses is not easy to find.
I'm working on that too.
But there are also walkways to the beach that need a license that don't have it. It's another beach. Can I just ask,
We took a field trip. Last Friday. So
That's cool.
stay tuned. Stay
I know we're
tuned.
not involved, but.
So, and that just goes to the idea of you talk about, your purpose and things like that and creating action items and like, so maybe we can get this to a honed in thing where then we can be able to delegate responsibilities and make some progress here with exactly these kind of things.
Excellent.
But you need some tools to ahead of time to be able to do that.
I think encroachment and access are two of the primary missions.
As I turn and come on, Andrew Vorst was the tool because his memory was incredible.
He was the tool, right?
But you couldn't always access it.
So just back to One Big Beach. Later. I don't recall how they tie into yard sales. And maybe others do, but I'm a little puzzled.
So what happened was they often had the paper road or something
Yeah.
was abutting it. And so what we did was we took the paper.
Barter.
And then right, exactly. We bartered to retain pedestrian access in exchange for the easement for beach access and pedestrian access.
Like that recent one.
And then they got the paper road parcel with the ground.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, Tracy, I thought that on some of those where the paper road went down to the beach, there was a negotiation for One Big Beach access as well.
Yeah, there was. So in some cases there is, you have to read each One Big Beach easement though. They're not like blanketly, like I can go there and put my beach chair down. And in some cases, they're just the ability to cross them, because they're private. So, anyways, I think having the inventory of them is important. I think that finishing up the project itself, that there are a number that aren't fully executed yet. So finishing up that is important. And, we're sorting through all of that.
Well, I'm gonna try and keep this meeting on some sort of a schedule. But I'm going to look at Tracy. I just lost my thought.
Can I just give you an example of one, Tracy, real quick, and that you could look at later? Natalie Jacobson's. That was one that had just about every issue, including the beach access, the big road next to her house that got made into a, I don't know, 10-foot, whatever it was. I think it was, I don't know if it was Uncatina Street or there was a road that went right past her house and there was a road in her backyard. And it all kind of worked. I just don't remember exactly every detail, but that was one of the more.
Yeah, I mean, I have gone down and looked at all of those and kind of sifted out some of them. The famous one that I did last year, which I had started when it from the beginning when the yard sale program first started, was the Fisherman's Beach.
Oh, absolutely.
that was, I remember doing it. We did the whole easement. The guy gave the one big beach, and then Crickets never got his parcel, everything. So it was stuck in land court for years upon years. And finally last July, I was able to convey the parcel for, you know, a one big beach easement and parking that we've had for fishing.
That we just took and thought was ours and it wasn't finished.
Yeah, yeah. So, so there is, you know, that's the part of it that's difficult, is that, you know, if they didn't already give the one big beach, will they still give it?
Can I just ask you, I don't mean to make
Matt,
the
Matt,
meeting
if
take
we
longer.
could hold the thought very quickly.
One more question for Tracy, just a quick one.
The thought that I lost is Natural Resources has numbered 40 or 50 access points, and they need to be merged, because some of them are public access and some of them are emergency access only. But every time you go to the beach, it says access point 42. Matt, you.
Mike, just a quick question to Tracy. I forgot to ask you this when I had you on the phone. Does the new deregistering, you know, whatever, with the state or with the land court, will that help us speed up some of these things that have stalled over the years?
I don't know. I had a meeting with one of the attorneys a few weeks ago, and if the paper road is already taken, it doesn't deregister the paper road. So if you deregister your property, paper road still stays registered. So you haven't claimed any advantage there. That won't speed up the process. So
Boy.
I think it's just, I do have one I have coming up that actually turns out the abutter parcel who's getting the benefit of the paper road, he is land court, but the paper road is actually unregistered. But that is some complicated title stuff to sort out, to know for sure one way or another. But I am going to convey an unregistered paper road to a person who is actually a land court. And then what I would gather is going to happen is then they will deregister and then combine themselves.
I'm looking at my watch. You know, I learned how to tell time. The big hand is here, the little hand is here. Tracy, what is Nantucket Harbor Action Plan?
So Phil brought this up at the last meeting, if you remember, saying that he is on that committee and that the roads and right of way was identified as to review the policy or whatever it is, the recommendation, I think is, and I think it's part of the master plan. And I actually got delivered a document today, which I haven't read the full email or looked at it at all, but I think you would need to continue. Phil's not here. He was the representative.
It's quite a big document.
And I don't know if you all have received the document, but I think that is going to have to be continued, and you'll have to have an opportunity to get something and review it before you can have a discussion.
Phil is vice chairman of the Harbor Plan Committee.
Right. So
This committee was very much involved with the writing of the last harbor plan. That was what, 20 years ago, 15, however many years ago.
Alan, you're almost right. The harbor plan was written by a consultant, and I was liaison to something called the Harbor Plan Implementation Committee. And Sarah Oaktai was chair of that. And she applied an engineer's scientist's approach to it and created a matrix of 101 actions and 15 operators, and drove the then select board chair nuts to the point that Sarah found another job.
So it looks like there's, I mean, the email came from, let me just take a look at it. It came from the UMass students, I believe, or, and was asking for comments by a certain date. So, we do need to know from Phil what the situation was.
Yeah. But I do now understand what it is and where we're connected. we're not reviewing the entire plan, we're reviewing our responsibilities within the plan.
Yeah, our main goal back then was public access.
Particularly,
And that's why our committee was involved with that. Same with the One Big Beach program, we were involved in that because of the Surfside issues and where it all sort of started. And then that program, because it was successful in Surfside, expanded all around the island. But like, you know, all the things we've been talking about today, these, you know, we talked about them years ago. And we actually did things about them years ago. The encroachment plans, this, that, and the other thing, but things evolve, things change.
Right.
It's like painting your house, you gotta do it every so often, so it doesn't hurt to go back and review what you've done to bring it up into the modern.
So to be philosophical,
So I have the plan. They're looking for comments by Thursday, July 31st. It looks like this was a group email sent to a bunch of different people.
So you actually have.
I do.
will be included.
I'm looking here.
It would have been shared reader.
It looks like it went into everybody. It's like 16 pages. Hold on.
I'll be the one too.
Yeah, you're number 40 on the list. And your role is public access. Looks like so I would imagine Phil will go through this, but it looks like they're asking you to review specific sections.
Okay.
And they identify them in this.
As a group, we're not gonna make.
No, as a group.
When did this email go out?
I just got it just before the meeting.
Oh, okay, so just today.
So
I shut down at 3 o'clock.
yeah, I just got it almost just before I came here. So I did, like I said, I hadn't even looked at it really. So that will have to be continued.
So just as a piece of philosophy, yes, we will listen to anybody who complains, but our role, as Alan points out frequently, is advisory. And we don't need to give advice along the lines of something that the recipient already knows. I don't feel we need to antagonize anybody in town by telling them to do their job better when they're already working their heart out. So philosophically, as we uncover or touch upon things where it's helpful to discuss and share the discussion, I think that's where we should be headed.
I think overall, looking back over the years at what the committee has done and the projects we've been involved in and so on, there is sort of a repeat of, you know, a lot of these issues coming back.
So for Tracy's benefit, because Alan points out, when I first joined the committee, Annie Bissinger was developing a complex matrix to determine how it is we should recommend a road to be taken. And I think she dealt with maybe 2 roads out of 10 or 15. We backed off from something that complex. Simply, we didn't have the knowledge or the time to do it. Annie moved on to other things. But one by one, that list of 10 or 15 roads is down to 3.
Well, part of
Good point. I remember that. And there was the one in Codfish Park, I remember clearly that you worked on.
Win is one of the three. Friendship and Somerset was the second. And we've agreed that Stone Alley, as long as somebody maintains it, is best left untouched.
So Stone, and actually, the Stone Alley reinvigorated itself a little bit, maybe just even in between the last meeting and this one.
Isn't there a letter in the paper?
Something, and there's been like some idea as to maybe we are gonna go forward with it, but gotta figure out some stuff.
Was that from Ginger?
There's also Franklin Street.
Well, I gotta meet with Ginger. We had met with her last year. We have a preliminary plan that needed revision, but you know, as things go in these matters too, you need to have, you know, sort of funds to match what the plan is to go forward and all that kind of stuff. So we're trying to figure out, I guess, how we're gonna move it forward.
Well, I want to spend, or Alan, I should spend some time with Mike Burns. Mike used to come regularly and talk about amendments or edits to the transportation. And the most recent one covers a lot of things that we've been talking about for years. Pleasant Street sidewalk, for example. And maybe he's got all the input he needs, but it's something I'd like to find out. I'd like to hope that Mike might come every other meeting.
So I think the proposal is to take it as an easement taking with them retaining the fee. But there's been some stuff at the top that is been done. So now we have to go back and meet with all these people and try to figure out.
You're talking about Pleasant Street.
I'm talking about Stone Alley.
Yeah.
And so we have it on our list of, you know, trying to go back and meet with them all again and kind of figure out a path forward. We had originally thought that it included some drainage mediation. So we spoke with the town drainage, Charles, who kind of coordinates that, to ask if that was on his list, because the revisions to the plan seemed to allude that there was going to be some kind of drainage component, but he said, no, they don't have a project or an appropriation for it. So it's really, we do want to preserve the access there, but I did do some research. And, you know, I go back to this a number of times on things. You know, if it's historically used as pedestrian for more than 20 years, it's prescriptive. And I don't think you could really say that you can't use it. But the question is who maintains it.
Yeah.
And the liability.
Yes. Yeah, it's not the pedestrian friendliest way.
So you don't want to draw too much attention to it, because you don't, as well, you don't become the next Wisconsin block path issue for people too, you know, so there's a fine line of how you publicly go about this.
One of the reasons this committee has been so successful over the years is the fact that we are advisory to the select board. And we've always had open communications with, you know, the main people who are actually in charge of this. And we've always maintained a good relationship with those key people. We let them know what our feelings, what our research has shown, as far as sidewalks, for example, as far as, you know, we talked about Stone Alley years ago.
So yeah, so that would it would be good if we can kind of get that going forward. Then you could attend and make a recommendation, or, you know, write a recommendation, or however you want to do it. But it's I think that there is some ways forward, and you know, we'll just have to see how it goes.
That you know where the right rivers are, you know, who are the right people to talk to.
Well, and I think honing in on your agenda and kind of, you know, tightening up your you know, what you work on. And then achieve that and then go to the next thing. And so that, you know, it stays concise.
So I am gonna try and wrap this up, but within reason, not cutting anybody off. Ed's comment, there you go.
What about the side of blood bath not drawing too much attention?
So,
But I mean,
Oh.
not drawing too much
it's
attention.
come back. Win Street,
Oh, Winstreet.
we've had a long-term discussion about how to avoid Prospect and Quaker for bicycles. And parts of the route are there, and parts of the route, other parts of the route are on paper, but not there on the ground. And it should be a goal.
So again, that's like, I think we talked about this at the last meeting, that would be a really good collaboration with the other committees.
Oh, we have a question because, Saratoga or Mount Vernon, one or the other, it's one way.
Saratoga. Saratoga, right. Winstreet's a mess right now. It's a big cut through to avoid some of the bottlenecks on Prospect and Quaker, big time. It's really a one-way street. There's no way, unless you're pulling almost into people's heads, that you can get by a truck coming one way. It may even have to be made a one-way street at some point, which I would think. It should be, the town should do it properly. It should be actually widened to what it is. If you want to put the bike path through there to do it, it should be, that's a very important thing.
For motor vehicles, it's one way, but in a side path, it could be two ways.
Exactly. And there's even
Yes.
property owners that have, I think, shown some, like on Pleasant Street, they've shown the willingness to allow some of their property actually to be even used like that asset for perhaps for a sidewalk. I mean, I think that's Win Street is a very important piece right now. The way the town, if you look at it over and you see all the cogs and the way the blockages is, one blocks to the other, that's becoming a very important piece right there.
I've learned a lot from Tracy.
100%. 100% agreed. And
And
we're not supposed to make the meeting take longer. So I'm not going to say another word.
lenders, the realization that some of those properties are actually land courted and it ain't gonna be easy. And I don't think Saratoga and Win Street would be any easier. Although
The
Win Street-
Saratoga idea was an old one, Lee. Were you on the committee then?
Yeah, I know that.
That got kind of kiboshed. That was a good idea until it wasn't. That needs to kind of be left the way it is. But the Win Street needs to definitely be made narrower, one way, and paved as the bike route or alternative bike route to Mattocket Road. So you don't have to use Quaker. And honestly, part of Prospect, to be honest. I mean, you'd be able to go.
Bill got stuck behind two bikers on the mountain today with everybody like this and the bikers just like in the middle of it.
Go up Prospect Street. We've been working on Prospect Street solutions for 22 years and it hasn't been done yet. So I don't know what to tell you about that. But as far as that Win Street thing, and Alan can chime in on this, between the easement we have up at Old Mill Court or Old Mill, whatever that's called up there, the development up behind Weldon's, the left on whatever that is, the left at to get to Hummock Pond Road and the cemetery. I mean, there's multiple ways to get over to Win Street. Is it going to work for every single bike? Absolutely not. But it's an alternative, and people will get used to it. They put those little sharrow things in the street, and you'll see, there'll be little bike things, and it'll make it easier for people to find where they're going. So, That's what has to happen over there on Wynn Street, in my opinion.
Cool. So, before we close this meeting, I'm gonna take what little notes I've made, and they're very few, and things that I remember, and try and create an agenda for August, which I'll just share with everybody. It will not be the agenda, it'll be the draft agenda for sharing to insert additional things. And if there's too much for August, those that can be deferred to September will be. And then we'll double check with Tracy and then have it distributed with posting. And Tracy, I'll try to remember that a day before the meeting, I'll send out a reminder.
So I calendar, I had calendar, Bill had sent me the agenda. Bill Breeder had
Yeah.
sent me it, so I had calendared it as to when it needed to be posted, so I knew that I was gonna be posting it this month, but going forward, that's not what I would normally do.
So what's happened is going to be vulgar to us OFs. Old fellows would be one interpretation of OF. Is that we forget to look at the new part of the website that says agendas. It's all there. But it used to be that you looked up your committee and then recent agenda or full agenda, and we could get the packets.
Is there any move to go back to the old? I think just to share with you, I'm sure you've heard this. The new one is, I can't imagine why someone would like it compared to the old one.
It's not as intuitive.
It's just, we used to be able to go back 2 years and say, I don't know what meeting I'm looking for, and they'd be all right there, you could pick them out. Here, you gotta know the date, go back and find the minutes or the package to find what you're looking for. And then you say, oh no, I mean, it's just not a good system.
I'm going to add to Rick's pet peeves. The PDF that's there, if you try and click on the Zoom link, it says, we don't do this. And so I've got to translate the agenda into a Word document or copy and paste into Word and then it'll work.
I mentioned this because I'm hoping people like Tracy and others will share that reaction and the town might back. Hard to believe, but
Rick, you have to understand the mentality of an IT person. They're immensely proud of the change they just made.
yeah, well, that's
I don't know whose responsibility it was. I know communications does the actual implementation of the website, but I don't know if it came from a storage capacity situation from IT or what happened, but there is a number of shifting and things going on with actual like cloud storage and things like that. So I don't know. I don't know who's I know I try to stay in my lane as much as possible.
Mr. Chair,
Okay.
I'm afraid I'm gonna have to depart the meeting in a minute. I have to be at another meeting at 5:30 and I have to drive in this traffic to get there in town, so I might have to,
I could lend you a bicycle and then you could weave and bob and dive.
and then I have to come back and get my car.
No,
at 3 in the morning.
we're close to done, but when you leave, we won't have a quorum. So why don't I just ask very quickly if there's anything urgent that we haven't discussed? Okay, hearing none. My plan is to share the agenda for August 19 relatively soon so that we can try and make some order out of this, even perhaps before the minutes get produced. But if we get the minutes, why, it'll all be there for us to pluck. Okay. Well,
Would you make a motion?
well, I was just going to say that Robert, who worked for his entire life for the Army Corps of Engineers, but his rules of procedure was for the church congregation, I think it was Fall River Mass, which was in such chaos that he decided that we had to have some order, and that's the Robert's Rules of Order. And they're derived from parliamentary rules of order. but in his introduction, he says, the purpose of the rules are not to obstruct the activity of a committee, but to facilitate it, to try and make it. And then I went on to say, when you reach the end of your printed agenda, you're done, because there's nothing more to talk about until you're adjourned. But there seems to be this practice in Nantucket of making a motion, which Rick is gonna make, and Ed's gonna second. And Alan's gonna say aye, I'm gonna say aye, Rick's gonna say aye, Rick's gonna say aye, and we're adjourned at 5:16. Does it say 5:16 there?
That does, 5:16 PM.
All in favor?
So I do so move. And Lee, so seconds?
I so second.
And we all vote.
There you go, like that.